Well, hello guys, welcome back. So, you knew it was coming because this channel, God of the Day, is God. I hear the unsubs already. Stay with me. I promise you this has not been a convert Christian channel waiting for years to pounce. Because God can't be bought. God can't be put in a box, and I'm going to give you a link to kind of a real fun music video. Keep in mind that I don't think you therefore have to go become a Christian and give up paganism. I don't. But it's kind of a fun video, and it talks to you about how, God's not a white man sitting on a throne. God doesn't vote Republican or Democrat. God doesn't do much of anything we're told God does. It doesn't mean God doesn't exist. It just means God is love. There's not much to work with that if you're going to try to make a religion now, is there? Because if God is love, and God truly loves us unconditionally, then wow, we don't need most of the religions we have lying around. But we humans are really good at inventing things. So why are we talking about God? Well, for one thing, we have to rescue God, in a sense, for our own peace of mind, if we need to. If you don't, just feel free to skip this. From the idea of being owned by religion. If you were brought up in a church or this society, kind of feels like at one point you kind of have to leave God behind, right? Because God belongs to fill in the blank. God belongs to the Christian, God belongs to whomever, God belongs to the church. You're not allowed to have God or play with God or even remotely look at God unless you do as they say, because they will tell you God said so. God said no such thing. The God I worked with was never even remotely interested in church. And although I have had many a God say, well, of course I'm God, technically they're right. They all are God. Not in the Wiccan sense of, all gods are one God, though that's a totally valid viewpoint. But in the sense of, yes, all gods are indeed gods. That's literally how it works. Whether all gods are one God or many gods, I think that comes down to personal belief and experience. I do know that there's no preferential treatment that I've ever seen of, okay, you're all truly all different faces of one divine entity, or treating them all separately. It doesn't seem like one's a fast track to somewhere and the other one's like, ooh, you need to level up on your spirituality, man. But we do need to get rid of the idea that God can be owned by people, because then those people start deciding things that God never told them about, because the first thing they did was stop talking to God, because that's how religions work. And they decide that maybe God hates gays, or God hates women, or God hates people of every other religion except for their religion because they're right, because God told them so. We see the problem here, don't we? Because God is love, and that doesn't have to be a Christian concept, because we have the same exact concept in Wicca, that the God, Father God, is pure love for his people, has millions, if not billions, if not trillions of countless faces, but God is God, and God is love. Now, we have all these beautiful stories, but it points back, if you look at it in a Wiccan sense, to the same divinity. Now, if you look at it more in a pagan sense with having many gods, God is still God. We don't know who God is. We could take a guess, but we don't know who God is. And of course, every God you work with is going to go, well, of course I'm God. Because every pagan's had that moment of trying to figure out who God is. And Odin has had me utterly convinced that Odin is God. And Loki has had me utterly convinced that Loki is God. But normally, God is just God. That's it. Nothing to do with church. It's just love. Is always there for me to talk to. In fact, I was talking to God tonight because I was like, we're talking. Because you're coming up for God of the Day, and you've been coming up for a while, and I can kind of just feel you in the periphery. And the thing with God is, it's totally no pressure. I don't even mean like remote pressure or God acting deliberately cute and non-confrontational so that I give God something. God's not even capable of that. God can do everything in a way. This is true, yes, but God is never going to manipulate you into something, because God is love, and love does not manipulate you into things. Just like, oh, by the way, I'm still here, I'm still God. Do you want to talk? Let's talk. And we would talk, and I've been telling God lately, it's kind of a shame that you can't be bought, and God seems very amused by this. And I say, well, imagine what an easy world we'd live in, guys, if, you could buy God or buy any God. Imagine if you could buy God by going to church and donating money every once in a while. Imagine if you could buy Loki by running a Lokean channel or God spousing or anything else you could think of. Imagine if you could buy Odin, All-Father with a tattoo. These are all nice things to do, in theory, but we can't buy the gods with them. They're not for sale. We can't buy them, and that's kind of scary, right? So anything I'm saying about God can apply to Loki, Odin, anyone. You can just, fill in the blank. We can't buy God. God's totally a free bird, despite what these religions think. You can't lock up God. God's just everywhere and in everything. And that doesn't have to be a Middle Eastern concept either, because most religions have an idea of a head deity that is everywhere, all at once, and knows everything. Odin has his ravens, but Odin is everywhere anyways, and he has his high throne. We all have explanations of how our head deities see everything. Usually it's a high throne, or they just know it all. Loki, do not help. And, we have explanations, but it's basically the same thing. All gods can be everywhere all at once. They're gods. It's not a contest of this god stronger than that god. And we usually have heads of pantheons, so far as we know, because that is how human society is set up. We're kind of set up, early human society was set up, actually, they feel like the structure of a wolf pack because we watched wolves, and wolves kind of had it together. So we adopted their kind of strategy. So you had the parents at the top, then you had all the kids, and so on forth and so on. Now, we don't know if this is right, but it makes sense. So you needed leadership, is what you needed, which is why we always have our gods in leadership positions. Unless we get it totally backwards, our gods don't work for us. We work with, serve, love, or walk with our gods. Our gods aren't pets. God's not a chia pet. God's not a Tagamagachi. God is God. And giggles. Because Loki's backer, well, in a sense, he is. Yeah, if you do believe that God is everywhere and in everything, yes, then God is in a Tagamagachi. And I wouldn't call the Tagamagachi God and start lighting incense and candles, but in a sense, God is in that too. Getting giggles back there. Now, why is it important we rescue God? Just for a peace of mind. That's it. Just for a peace of mind. We have Loki, after all. We have every god in the universe. But it doesn't sit well for me for us to have every god in the universe except for God. So it does us well to sit down at some point. And again, I am not trying to put you into church or to get you to read the Bible or to turn you into some flavor of Christian. I promise you. And just talk to God and tell God everything on your mind, and only you know what's on your mind, but tell God everything, and I mean everything, just like we would talk to Loki or Odin or Thor or anyone else. Say, here's why I left the church, if you ever left the church or wherever you left, and here's what I'm mad about God, and here's what I'm happy about, and here's my fears for now, and here's my fears for the future. And God's going to let you, at least in my experience, run on until you're totally exhausted. Though occasionally God does interrupt, basically with love. But, God doesn't have any other conversation points because God doesn't actually have war's conversation point. That's Odin's lookout. And getting this really proud feeling back there. And God doesn't have fear tactics as a conversation point. That's the church's lookout. I'm getting absolutely crickets on that one. God is just love. And after you've explained everything you're angry about and everything you're sad about and everything you're scared about, you're just going to get love in return, in the sense that you just have to have faith. And that's the hardest part. You just have to have faith. And again, why do we have to have faith? Why do we have to bother at all with God? Well, technically you don't. So far as I know, there's no part of the afterlife that says, well, you did maintain your relationship with God, even though you served the Norse gods all your life, or you served the Greek gods all your life, or you became a committed Buddhist. Man, am I sorry, do I have bad news for you. We don't have to do it for that reason. It's just for our peace of mind. And it's just for the standpoint of it's not wrong for us to do so. Loki is not going to hate you and find a special punishment for you in the afterlife because you kept talking to God. Odin isn't going to kick you out of Valhalla because you went to church once or twice in the rest of your life, or you went to a synagogue, or you talked to Jesus, or you worked with angels and saints. It doesn't work like that. Those are all human roles. Those are all humans wanting roles. Some humans need structure, as strange as it is to those of us that do our own thing, especially Wiccans, because we don't tend to listen too well. Humans, a lot of humans need a ton of rules, a ton of structure. They would not have it any other way. They will say they would, but if you would let them out of whatever box they put themselves in, they'd be totally miserable. They need to have rules. They need to have punishments. They need to have consequences. You give them a God of love, they don't know what to do. That's why a lot of people come into paganism, for example, and then they go right back into wherever they came from, because if you tell them, well, Loki loves you, he is going to kick your butt for you every once in a while and try to knock some sense into you and try to make a better person out of you, but it's not a requirement. You don't have to reach a certain level on better personages and do that to get into the afterlife with Loki. That's not how this stuff works. It works better for everyone if we all work on self-improvement while we're here. Again, yeah, back here. So I just figured we would talk a little bit about God and how it's okay to talk to God. It doesn't mean you're crazy. Even if you hear God answer you, you're not crazy, any crazier than you are hearing Odin or Loki answer you. And to remember that the church doesn't own God. I think for most of us that is a huge stumbling block. We get the Jesus crazies, or we get the God crazies, or we get the other crazies, and we suddenly think we have to go become roaring Christians or Catholics, or we have to become Jewish, or we have to become Muslim. We don't have to do any of that. It's like telling people the very first thing they have to do before working with Odin is to go out and get a Volknut tattoo. We don't even know what that thing means, man. We're not even sure. We know it's tied to him somehow, but we really don't know what it means. It could be his, it could not, because everything we have about our gods is kind of guesswork, and we could be wrong. So, I just kind of figured we kind of needed to do that, because it is pretty close to Christmas. And, we were always taught growing up in church that if you didn't celebrate all the holidays in church, though they kind of loosened up, though not really, and you didn't give enough money to the church, and you didn't do everything the Holy Father told you to, and they're talking about the Pope, not God, haha, God was going to be mad at you. And this all-loving, beneficent God, was going to burn you for all eternity. Now, they've really loosened up on that. They got rid of purgatory, because the church, they're peniteller in their spare time. And they're starting to try to loosen up on the idea of hell being a place with fire and pitchforks and demons. But the damage is kind of done, because they ran with that for so long that now people won't let them drop it. And of course, it's coming to light all the horrible things the church has done. And so a lot of people are having a struggle of, well, if God exists, why did this happen? Because of the same reason of Loki existing and yet it happened, because we have free will, and that's our greatest gift. It's the greatest gift of every living sentient being on the planet. It's also the greatest stumbling block we have, because we can choose to do good things and we can choose to do destructive things. And that doesn't sound fair for when we choose destructive things. But we have to remember that's totally on us. That's totally our choice. It's not God or Loki or Odin or the Buddha or anyone else making people do bad things. Nor is it any kind of devil. It's just we have free choice. So, I figured we would talk about God and how it's okay if you still talk to God. Loki isn't going to abandon you. I don't know why, but that feels timely. Loki isn't going to abandon you, and God's not going to abandon you for being pagan either, in my experience. God's always free, because God's not owned by the church. God doesn't belong over there to them. God belongs to everyone, like oxygen, So I'm like, yeah, all I need is the air that I breathe and I love you, huh? And so, yeah, somebody's helping back here. So, I just figured I'd talk about that. Now, I know that didn't make much sense, but sometimes trying to talk about God without having a church to reference and without having a religion to reference is like running in circles, because God is love and all you have to do is have faith. There's not much of a video in that. You can't really build a religion around, well, God is love, just have faith. That's it. If that's all you told people, there'd be no religion. It would have never started. People would have went, oh, that's nice, and they would have walked away. So, it's a mixed blessing that we have all the religions we do. Humans mean well. Humans start out religions with the very best of intentions. Then we get too dogmatic. Then we can't see the forest for the trees, or the trees for the forest, whichever way you want to look at it. And we lose sight of the very divinity we claim to worship. So, if you guys like what you see, like, comment, and subscribe. And I'm just kind of liking this because, I've done my Yule stuff. It's about 2 in the morning. I have my headset on. I've taken my bath, so I look like a drowned rat. So, sometimes I like to kind of have these nice soothing backgrounds for you guys. So if you like what you see, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.